experience I'm about to share may sound impossible, but I swear it's real. Every single word of it. I've always believed in the paranormal, in strange, unexplainable things. But until recently, I had never lived through anything that truly crossed that line. Maybe a few odd moments here and there, things that didn't quite make sense, but nothing like what people usually share in this community. That changed not long ago. What happened to me is the most disturbing experience of my life, and even now, I struggle to find the right words to describe it. Still, I'll try. I'm originally from the state of Chiapas, a place known for its mysticism and old beliefs. And yet, during the 28 years I lived there, nothing truly terrifying ever happened to me. 4 years ago, in 2019, just a few months before the pandemic, I moved to Monterrey for work. I stayed with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and I got a job at a very well-known beverage company. My workplace was only about a 30-minute walk from our place. I could have taken the metro, but I preferred walking, even though my partner warned me not to. She had lived there longer than I had and told me certain areas could be dangerous, especially at night. But I didn't really care. It wasn't just about saving money. I genuinely enjoyed those walks. I liked the quiet in the early mornings, and I liked the silence even more at night, when the streets were empty and it felt like the city belonged only to me. Until one night, when everything changed. It was after a double shift. I had gone in at 6 in the morning, and since it was a busy season, I stayed for overtime. That night, I didn't clock out until almost 11 p.m. I spent a few minutes talking to coworkers, then walked a couple of blocks with some of them before we each went our separate ways. Soon, I was alone. That never bothered me. I knew I was close to home, but as I walked, I suddenly heard footsteps behind me. I didn't turn around. I just picked up my pace. The footsteps did the same. I started jogging, ready to run if I had to. The footsteps matched me perfectly. That's when I stopped dead in my tracks and turned around. There was no one there, just a long, empty street. Dark, barely lit by flickering streetlights. I knew I hadn't imagined it. Someone, or something, had been walking closer and closer behind me. I kept going, walking as fast as I could. After barely 2 blocks, I saw a silhouette ahead of me. It stood beneath a streetlight that was turned off just a few meters away. "What do you want?" I shouted. No response. It just stood there. Then the streetlight flickered, once, twice, and finally turned on. That's when I saw his face, and my blood ran cold. He was identical to me. Not someone who looked similar, not like a brother or a relative. He was me, exactly me. Same face, same body, same height, same everything. The image burned itself into my mind. For a split second, I couldn't move. My body refused to respond. Then instinct took over. I ran as fast as I could toward the nearest metro station, General Anaya. There's always a security guard there, or so I thought. When I arrived, there was no one, no guard, not even in the booth. I was gasping for air, my legs shaking. And then I saw him again, across the street, at the other entrance to the station, standing there, calm, still, waiting. I had run nearly a kilometer at full speed. There was no way he could have gotten there before me, and yet, he was already there. I heard the metro approaching and didn't think twice. I jumped the turnstile and sprinted down the stairs, barely making it into the last car. It was completely empty. As the doors were about to close, I saw my double walking down the stairs toward me. I prayed the doors would close in time. They did. The train pulled away. Those were the longest seconds of my life. At the next station, Cuauhtemoc, I ran out again, convinced he might be waiting outside. I jumped into the first taxi I saw and begged the driver to go. He didn't ask questions. He just drove. Only after we were moving did he look at me and ask if I was okay. He said I looked pale. I could barely tell him my address. When I got home, my partner was terrified by the way I looked. She asked what happened. I couldn't tell her. Not that night. Not ever. Not completely. The next day I called in sick. Then the next. And the next. I stayed locked inside for days. I've never felt fear like that before. Not fear of dying. Fear of something worse. Something unknown. Something dark. I later learned about doppelgangers. Stories. Legends. But that wasn't just a double. That was me. cold, empty, not human. All I know is this: they're out there, they're real, and sometimes, when you see someone you know from a distance, you might not be looking at who you think you are, because somewhere out there, there is someone who looks exactly. I want to tell you my story, or rather my experience. My name is Adrian. This happened in 2016. At the time, I was going through serious problems with my family, and I decided to leave home. I rented a small apartment in a town called Tamuin, San Luis Potosi. The place was tiny, only 3 spaces, a living room, a bedroom, and a bathroom, attached directly to the bedroom. I started work at 8 in the morning and got back very late at night. Most days, I only came home to sleep. Since I left my family's house so suddenly, I only brought my bed and 2 suitcases of clothes. When I first moved in, there were wooden crates left behind, the kind used to transport vegetables. I took one and used it as a shelf in the bathroom. The first few days felt normal, until November arrived. Even though it was still warm outside, my apartment was freezing, always cold, as if the air conditioning was on all the time. I didn't think much of it. Back at my family's house, I never liked sleeping in complete darkness, but in this building, the owner was strict about electricity. He demanded we save energy, so I had to sleep in total darkness. By mid-November, I noticed something strange. My pillows started developing a green, crusty layer. It was mold from excess humidity. That didn't surprise me too much. Sometimes I fell asleep with wet hair. What bothered me was that this had never happened before. The room always smelled damp. Before leaving for work, I opened the windows. I pulled back the curtains, trying to let sunlight in, but when I came back, the room was still ice cold. No air, no warmth, no sunlight. Even my metal bed frame started to rust. One Saturday near the end of November, I was asleep. The doors and windows were open. There was no risk of anyone breaking in. The apartments were inside the owner's property. Suddenly, I woke up from a sharp hit. It felt like someone had slapped me hard. The pain burned, but there was no one in the room. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep. I always sleep face down with one foot resting over the other. Just as I was drifting off again, I felt someone pull the foot that was on top. I turned on my phone's light. There was nothing there. What terrified me the most was that the bathroom door was right at the foot of my bed. I constantly felt like something was watching me from inside. I tucked the blanket tightly around my feet and tried to sleep again. Around midnight, something yanked the blanket, exposing me down to my waist. I told myself it was just me moving in my sleep, but at 5 in the morning, my feet were pulled again. This kept happening, day after day, until one night, while I was sleeping deeply, half dreaming, I heard a child laughing. I heard it running out of the bathroom. It jumped onto my bed and began bouncing on my back. I couldn't wake up, but I knew it wasn't a dream. The child was small, lightweight. When I finally sat up, the bed was still moving, as if someone had just jumped off. From that night on, I closed the bathroom door every evening, but at some point during the night, I always felt the child come out. Sometimes it pulled my feet, sometimes it uncovered me, other times it pulled my hair. Each time felt clearer, and slowly, my fear turned into anger. I started yelling at it, telling it to leave me alone, to let me sleep. A few days later, the landlady stopped me outside. She asked how I had been sleeping. Then she told me that at night she heard noises in my apartment, furniture moving, dishes falling. I told her I had no furniture, no dishes, no fan. Then I asked her who lived there before me. Her voice dropped. She told me the previous tenant used to practice witchcraft, cleansings, spiritual work. She offered to bring a priest. By then, I barely slept. Sometimes I woke up 10 times in a single night. I bought a small Bluetooth speaker with colorful lights and began sleeping with it on. That's when the child stopped coming out of the bathroom. The apartment stayed cold, damp. The pillows kept growing mold. In 2017, I moved into the apartment next door. It was identical, but warm, bright, peaceful. I slept normally. No one lasted long in the first apartment. The last couple left in the middle of the night, abandoning all their belongings. When I finally moved out, that apartment had been empty for 3 months. No one wanted it, and as far as I know, no one has lived there since. Hello, Fright Stories community. I finally worked up the courage to share my own paranormal experience, something that happened during a cold December, just days before Christmas and New Year's. As a family tradition, we were all gathered at my grandparents' house. The whole family was there, tamales, coffee, sweet bread, everything that still makes those nights feel vivid in my memory. It was around 1 a.m. when all the cousins decided to play hide and seek. I hid in my grandparents' bedroom with two of my cousins. Others hid in the living room, and I clearly saw my brother run toward the kitchen. One by one, my cousin found everyone, until only my brother was left. She walked toward the stairs, and barely leaning into the long hallway on the second floor, she shouted, "I see you, I found you, Luis." The house went completely silent. Not just upstairs, everywhere. Even downstairs where my grandparents and parents were, the noise stopped. It felt as if all sound had been drained from the house. Then, from the kitchen below, we heard my brother's voice. "I'm down here," celebrating, laughing, happy that he had won. That's when fear hit us all at once. He had never gone upstairs. There was no one on the second floor. Without saying a word, we slowly started climbing the stairs. I went first, even though I was the youngest. My cousin froze halfway up, not knowing what to do. Just before I reached the top, I saw something. Only I saw it. The thing my cousin had spoken to, believing it was my brother, was a figure crouched in the doorway of a bedroom, sitting on the floor, hugging its knees. I ran back down, screaming. No one dared to go any further. They tried to say it was a joke, but my cousin and I knew it wasn't. Sometime later, I asked my father if there were ghosts in that house, if he had ever seen anything. He answered immediately, without hesitation, yes. He told me his grandfather had died in one of the upstairs bedrooms, directly across from the room where I saw the figure. I still don't know why my cousin and I were the only ones who saw it. Nothing like that had ever happened before. But one thing I do believe, my father's grandfather loved his family deeply, and maybe that night he was still there, watching over us. At least, that's what I hope.